get things together to do some work. Which means I gotta remember where stuff is. Give you a little tour while we're at it. This is where I do woodwork, such as I do woodwork, or metal work if I have to drill holes. And then, of course, laundry, remainder of drum kit, remainder of amp stack, stuff, and the listening rig, testing rig. And I had my phase linear stuff stacked here. Here's the phase linear 200. That's got a bad output stage. It's going into thermal runaway. It's just making my head hurt trying to figure out what's wrong with it. And so I figured I'd work on the 2000, which stopped working recently. Here's the speaker wall, the XA, the Beaver Valley, the new amp, which I haven't quite figured out what to call yet, and the Macintosh C28. Okay, where are those clamps? I need clamps. 35, where did I put them? I've been using them. I use them. I'll show you my little rinky-dink rig here. Here's one of them. One clamp. Can't find the other. Maybe a light would help. Yeah, so I, originally when we moved in, got like that long fixture and this one. And those are great, but they're really expensive to buy, and I just haven't sprung for it. And so I'm just literally using a clip-on light here. Probably if I used this bench a lot more, then I'd do something, I suppose, right? But anyway, where's it? Where's the other clamp? I found the one. It's not up there. Can't see it. Do you? Well, it's got to be here somewhere, doesn't it? Pretty sure I never brought it up out of the basement. Pretty sure? It doesn't sound all that sure, does it? Oh. I mean, why didn't I see it? There it is. Yeah, at some point, maybe I'll get this whole business more organized. I'll give you a little tour of the home office here. Stereo. So I've got the Kenwood KA9100 in here. I'm just using its power amp stage. I wanted to put something solid state in here, and I wanted to give it some use because it's I've just had a hell of a time trying to get the power amp stage in the left channel in particular to work consistently. I think I got it finally, but man. All right, so on the bench today will be this. Well, there's the back of it. It's the Phase Linear 2000. But I got to set up the camera to point at the bench so I can use it. I just started using this Kenwood signal generator. I've got like 2 other signal generators, neither of which work. And my friend Dalton gave this one to me. I mean, it's not a gift per se, because if I'm gonna, he said, well, take this if you want to, if you want to keep it, then oh. So if you want to keep it, then pay me for it or whatever. And so I think I will have to do that because it seems to be, I said, well, maybe I don't think I need a signal generator because I've got like a couple. And you try all of them and they don't work. And I've just finally gotten tired of having to use the app on my phone. It's just, well, the problem is that the phone doesn't, the problem other than being just super ghetto is that it it doesn't have enough, the amplitude of the signal it puts out isn't big enough to drive some amps to full power. So, and I had been getting by putting the phone output into my little Kinter Class D amp, which is around here somewhere, but one of the sets of outputs, speaker outputs from it broke off or just self-destructed anyway. So, well, rather than replace the little amp with something different, it's time to figure out a real signal generator setup. So that's where the Kenwood comes in. And so far it seems to work really well. It only has the one output, so I'm experimenting now with tapping into the output with 2 different cables. So I don't know. Maybe one of you can tell me whether I should expect that kind of thing to work or not. You just got so it's just got the usual sort of banana plugger binding post outputs there. Plug the thing in there that goes to a BNC, and then it's set up to where you can plug in another one. So got another one plugged through the top holes, and so I think this will work. It depends on the I guess it just depends ultimately on the output impedance of the signal generator. I don't know offhand what that is, and so we'll see if it works well enough to diagnose what's going on with the Phase Linear 2000. All right, put some other stuff. Actually, before I put that up there, good. So here's my setup. Got the tripod. This is a super cheap tripod, but it's the one that I use. And I've literally got a coat hanger that I've bent up to hold my phone, and I can't show you that now because the phone's in that coat hanger thingy, and that's screwed on to the dealy bob that mounts to the top of the tripod. And so I'm gonna put the tripod for streaming. Stick the tripod up there along next to that shelf bracket, and then just clamp it to the shelf with these brackets here. I don't know if I'll be able to show you me doing that. I will need 2 hands to do it. Let's see if you can see if I set the camera like so. See, I'm gonna do it. Maybe, sorta, kinda. Move the lamp, maybe. Well, you know, I'm always professional, so we'll deal. I'm sure there are just way slicker ways to do this, to do what I'm trying to do. But you know, there's a bit of a trick showing bench work. And AI tells me that that's one of my big weapons against AI. I just made a video and it'll go up later this week about AI slop, both how to get it, how to, you know, what's going on with it, how to get it out of your feed, how to recognize it, first of all, and how to get it out of your feed, and how to, if you're a creator, how to defeat it, or how to win, I guess. And apparently, one of my big weapons is hands-on work, and that makes sense, right? I'm trying to see which part of the bench I want to show. That looks good. All right, I'm gonna go get the laptop. I do want to be able to interact with the chat, and I need the laptop to do that. So, yeah, I guess I can bring you with me, no worries. I don't need to leave this clamped in. So let's go find the laptop. Not entirely sure the laptop's going to work for me. It's been having issues connecting to the internet in my office, which is really awfully strange because there's an a Wi-Fi repeater in there, but it doesn't seem to be able to talk to the Wi-Fi repeater for some reason. And I don't know what's going on. You know, it's not like I'm computer illiterate by any means. I suspect that the issue may be the fact that my computer is so old. It's a 2012 MacBook Air. Hello, good girl. Let's say hi to Bella. Hello, she dog. Where's my good girl? Yeah, such a good dog. Oh, I guess I should mention, you know, there is an option. Whoa. There is Super Chat. Super Chat's a thing. If you want to drop me some cash. And I always am shy about asking and pointing out even that the Super Chat exists, but it is a thing. So if you want to contribute to my general welfare, then I would appreciate it, but don't feel obligated, of course. I don't know, is there only one of you watching right now anyway? Well, we'll get going here in a minute. Still, oops. I hope we're still going. I think so. I'll find out in a sec. decent shot. Gotta get the laptop power cord set up here. Such a professional setup, isn't it? It's all right, I don't feel bad. Ooh, I better plug in the phone too. That would be a problem. Where am I going to plug all this stuff in? Here we go. Got some new power strips to use here. And it's just a bit of a pain to undo the old and put in the new. All right, I'm just getting the laptop going here, and then I'll get going. Just closing browser, Windows, etc. So I'll basically want to close everything that that I don't need to have up for streaming, to monitor the stream, that is, because it's an old computer that will have issues. Getting there, folks. Sorry, I'm not feeling super chatty. I'm not feeling super chatty, then why am I doing a live stream? I don't know. I don't know. Oh shit, wrong version of me. So Lancaster Hi-Fi is actually my second channel, and Geomorph Dog was my first channel. And but I still mostly watch YouTube through my first channel, Geomorph Dog. Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it sort of gives me like a view of what I look like, what Lancaster Hi-Fi looks like to a frequent viewer. And it's, it's actually a little distressing how, even though as Geomorph Dog, I watch all of my videos during the premieres, how it still, often doesn't give me prompt notification of Lancaster Hi-Fi stuff. Anyway, whatever, right? Let's see. All right, here we go. Yeah, Festus, the phase linear stuff is just super. I don't know. It's just the quality control just wasn't all that great, and the designs were not always very stable. Let me think. I've had a phase linear 4000. That one has problems with the way the boards are put together. It's boards hooked, plugged into boards, and those connections, the solder joints on those connections just always crack. I think that's the major problem with that one. Although the phase linear 4000 that I had, somebody had done some modifications on it. Anyway, the phase linear 200 that I've got, it has a problem with thermal runaway, and hence the name Flame Linear, or the nickname of Flame Linear for phase linear stuff. It just keeps blowing fuses, and I've tried. Somebody had replaced the output transistors in one channel. I thought maybe those were the problem, so I replaced those with something with, I think, actually originals, but that turned out to not be the problem. So maybe the problem was those original output transistors, and maybe the problem's on the other channel. I don't know, man. Anyway, all right. I've got everything pretty much set up. Let's put that thing on the bench. This is a bit tricky to open up. I'll show you. Oh, that was swift, huh? All right, let me just move this just a tad. So it's got this, it's beautiful. Beautiful wooden case. So, this has a bit of a story behind it. I got this at the same time that I got a phase linear 200, a Kenwood KA, or no, sorry, the turntable, the Rock turntable, and I'm spacing on the model number of that right now. Of course, it has a bent cantilever, so I need a new stylus at least for it. And the Dahlquist DQ10s, the speakers. And I got them all for relatively speaking, small amount of money. Built into my offer was that, any one of the pieces could just fail at any time and be unfixable. And sure enough, this one I've had problems with for various reasons. And I've already done work on this. The phase linear 200, the power amp is not working right now. It's, like I said, it's going into thermal runaway. The turntable, I haven't worked on it at all. I just haven't gotten to it, but it does require a new stylus, which isn't a huge deal, but it's something that is required. And I'm pretty sure it's going to need a new belt as well. The only thing in that set of stuff, only the speakers are the only things that haven't given me any trouble at all, or are no trouble, and just work right out of the, brought them home, plugged them in, and they work fine. And so that I guess I just tell you, well, and then here's the bit of a story of it was that my wife was over visiting a friend of a friend, saw he had some vintage gear, must have asked him about it. Anyway, I hooked up with him, and went out, looked at the stuff. Later on, made him an offer, and he accepted that offer. And but I would just say, if you're ever presented with an opportunity like that, you do need to do your homework, and you do need to figure out what you can get. So built into my price was, okay, what can I get for these? What are these going for in working condition, at least? And what do I expect them to need in terms of work, just ballpark, and build that into the price, and then discount all of that by some risk factor that one or more pieces, even the whole shebang, may not work, may be unrepairable. I think the price I paid for all of that stuff was $350 with all those caveats and factors worked in. Something like that, maybe actually I think it was $340. And it turns out that the day I called him back to make him an offer, he had been sort of looking at the stuff, and he'd just gotten back into town, and he was thinking, if he offered me $350, I'd take it. And so since the offer I came at him with, which came with some hemming and hawing because it was lower than we had discussed initially, he said, yeah, that's fine. I guess the other part of the story is that all the gear had belonged to his cousin, and his cousin had recently passed away. And he and his cousin were the hippies of the family, and he had helped his cousin build a big sort of entertainment center to house all this gear. The guy I interacted with, the guy I bought it from, had retired from essentially being a show promoter. And I don't know just how big the shows that he was he a promoter? I can't remember whether he was a promoter or a producer, effectively. I don't know what you call the person who actually makes the thing happen, for like music festivals and whatnot. That's what he did in California. All right, so I got to get this thing open. Oh, right. You'd think you'd look at this and you go, oh, it must be bolted into the wood here, but no. I'm reminding myself that it's screwed in here on the bottom. And I've actually replaced the screws that had been in here. I'm not sure this is an original configuration. And my recollection is that the power amp isn't bolted or screwed into the wooden case at all. It's just sitting in there. Anyway, so we'll start with just getting this out of here. Now these are actually a couple of the screws that are sort of holding the whole unit together, so I actually better go ahead and put it on its front. I'll get these screws out. Now you can see sorry, that was my phone ringing from a number that I don't know. Okay, where was I? Yeah. Probably the most major work, the most work that I've done on this is to replace all of the output jacks. It had, and I've kept the originals, they're right here. These were board mounted, and they're kind of nice in that they are the kind of jacks that when you unplug whatever's jacked into them, they ground. They're grounding plugs, which is nice. Which is why I've got, and these aren't that sort of thing. The problem with these is that they're really fragile, and since they're sitting mounted to the board and behind the back plate here, it's hard to get an RCA plug plugged in well enough for them to work. And so I went ahead and just replaced them all. A couple of them were broken anyway, and I replaced them all. And so I just bought a bunch of these grounding plugs to put in there. They're not great. In other words, why aren't they great? Because they're not very tight and they don't have a mechanism for tightening. All right, let me just get the back. So anyway, yeah, this is the screws holding it into the case are part of what holds the case, the chassis together. Now it should just lift right out of there. Keep hitting my head on that camera, sorry about that. So now we've just got the wooden case. It's a very nice wooden case. I mean, it's particle board, but whatever. Veneered on both sides at least. All right. So you can see the actual unit, not big at all. It's very light. There's not much to it really. So my understanding is that this, while phase linear was kind of a Bob Carver thing, this particular one is not designed by Bob Carver. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. All right, so how this comes apart, it's got a bottom plate, it's got a face plate, it's got a top plate, and honestly, I'm gonna have to look inside. I'll take out the top plate first, I think, to remind myself how this is all held together or not. My recollection is that it's a little squirrely once we get inside there. Squirrely, what do I mean by that? Well, we'll see what I mean by that, I suppose. Okay, so it's just a piece of sheet metal. It's got a reasonably nice finish on top, and then it's perforated for ventilation, I suppose. It's always interesting to look at the insides of these to see where there might be some discoloration. Are those heat sources? And what's under those? And in this case, it's not obvious what might be leading to those particular spots being discolored. Interesting. Okay, so we see a bunch of board mounted pots and switches, and then on the back everything is now, of course, mounted to the all those jacks are mounted to the back plate, or which is just a single, this is all just a single piece of bent metal. I think the way to get into this and work with it is these boards are bolted onto the back with these angle brackets. And so I think to work on it, I want to leave it mounted to this piece and remove everything else. Oh, well, I suppose actually first I probably ought to remind myself that I don't quite remember what's wrong with it. And so, yeah, let's figure out what's wrong with it. I've replaced a few things now that I look in here and remind myself. These are new. These Rubicon 470 microfarad 63 volt caps. And then these are new. I believe those are 1 microfarad film caps. Yeah, I think that's right. 10 times 10 to the 5th picofarads. And you can see all the new soldering for these. Oh, well, that cap's clearly new. Again, a Rubicon, 1 microfarad, 100 volt. This is rectifier stuff. I don't recall whether I replaced any of the original diodes. If there was not a strong reason to do so, then I probably didn't. And it's pretty clear that all the resistors are original, at least all the ones that I can see. The odd man out is this one here, but that doesn't look like anything that I would have had in stock. You can see some original capacitors over here. I think these are all original here. These are probably Elnas. This probably Nichicon. Not sure. Now we're a no-name brand. I don't even see a brand name on it. And the gray one looks like an Elna, but it's not. It's Shigma. whatever the heck Sigma is. All right, so I'm going to need to take off all the knobs. All of these have nuts that are essentially holding, you know, another nut on the other. There's the nut there, and there's a nut on the other side. And this is an issue. You know, I might. Well, again, I need to see what's wrong with this before I do any more disassembly. I might be able to work on this simply by taking off the bottom plate, though, and leaving everything else alone. Because there is more stuff down here, and I know that at least one of these is not so securely mounted, or at least not mounted to the board like these. All right, let's figure out what's going on here. Where do I plug in? I've taken up all my outlets. Unattached power cord. So professional here. Anyway, I can see the inputs and outputs. I've got all the inputs grounded right now, and the outputs over here. So it's got inputs for 2 tape devices, tuner, auxiliary, phono, and outputs for monitor tape for outputs for tape 1 and tape 2. And it's got 2 sets of outputs for the main system, so you can plug it into you know, it's not quadraphonic, but you can plug it into 2 different, and they're just labeled rear and front. So I guess by default these would be the mains, but I believe either will do. I think they're literally just connected. I don't think there's any switching going on there. Yeah, there's no recollection that there's no output switch. Power switch is on the volume knob, which is it's not awesome, but whatever. I guess it just does guarantee that when you turn something on, the volume will be at minimum, which may be a good sort of kind of safety feature. All right. It's off. Plug it in. And give it some inputs. What should I test first? I'll go ahead and test the aux inputs first, because it's just I believe this is the phono preamp over here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Anyway. Oh, well, I need to look at the outputs, won't I? Probably the best way to do that is to plug the probes in on the back and the inside here. Outputs over here, so left, right. All right. And let me get the scope set up so you can see as well. Got some burned out Macintosh bulbs. Replaced the bulbs in my Macintosh preamp recently. That was exciting. Ooh, so pretty. Yeah, it'll show up all right. I think. I better look first at the input before I get too carried away here. The signal generator is capable of relatively large magnitude, amplitude, whatever signal, so don't want to overload the input. Aux, probably want to shoot for just a start with at least a 1 volt signal, something like that. So it's still off, but you can turn on the signal generator. Let's see, let me put reading number 2 on A. Let it tell me the frequency. Right now it's set at, should be set at 1,000 hertz. Oh, that's clever of me. Okay, there we have 1 volt RMS, and let's just see if I can get that. This doesn't have some kind of digital device to set the frequency. It's a dial, analog dial, so that's close enough. All right, 1 volt, 1 kilohertz. Okay, moment of truth, I suppose. We know what's coming in. Go ahead and set the selector to aux. And turn it on. Well, that's looking fine, I suppose. And there's not much to being a preamp for 1-volt input, is there? Let's see what this will do. Okay, so that's max volume. I'll bump that 1 volt up to 4.91 volts. That's pretty good. And there we are at unity gain, which is about 130-ish on the volume knob. All right, well, gee, that seems to be fine. Seems like that's the story of this preamp, that it seems to be working fine and then all of a sudden doesn't. So, of course, now the thing would be to check the phono input, but I gotta dial way back on the input to do that. So let's do that. Go ahead and turn it back off. And I can turn off that and switch the inputs over to phono. Okay. Switch that to phono. Bring the probes over here before I turn it on to see what. So I can adjust the level on the signal generator. So I want to put in about 2.5 millivolts. And I'm hoping that this Kenwood will be super handy for that, because 2.5 millivolt signal out of my phone was awfully noisy, or at least in the way that I had been doing that. Why am I not seeing anything? Oh, well, should be showing up. I didn't change anything, did I? What happened? What's going on? Got nothing. Is huh? plugs must be shorted to ground or something. Right? I mean, unplug it. I've got a big mondo signal, as I would expect. And well, let me go ahead and bring the amplitude down. I don't know what's going on here. Got an attenuator. All right, that's 2.5 millivolts, 2.6, close enough. So why am I getting nothing? Suppose the thing to do would be to check continuity to ground. Is it just grounded? It's not grounded. Let's try plugging it in again and see if I can reproduce the issue. Again, nada. Let's try turning it on. See if that might make some difference for some reason. No. And the selector's set to phono. Doesn't seem to make a difference whether it is set to phono or not, though. Something here is sucking up the signal. That's weird. I think I've seen this before. Let's check the other one too. I mean, they're connected, so it shouldn't matter. Whoa. And what did I do? I simply unplugged it a little bit, scooted it out. Probably so that it's not making good contact in there anymore. No, because of course it is, otherwise it wouldn't be getting, I wouldn't be seeing a signal at all. This is an old-fashioned sort of plug. Let's check the other one. Yeah, that was it. Interesting. That old-fashioned too long of a plug seems to short the plug. Seems to short the input. Good to know. All right, well, now let's look at the output, and I'll just keep looking at the input for now. And yeah, inputs to phono. See what we're getting out, if anything. Okay. Oh, now that was weird. You see that? All of a sudden, something's screwy. It's going from very low input to boom. That seems suggestive of the volume pot, maybe. Now let's see if it's doing it in both channels. No. Seems to be a right channel issue. All right, let's turn it up. I'm sort of working the volume pot. You'd think that if it were just the volume pot issue, that would tend to solve the problem. That is the left, no, the right channel is super attenuated, and left channel's fine. If it were a problem with the volume pot having sort of an intermittency there, then you'd expect just sort of working the pot like I'm doing right now would tend to resolve the issue, but appears to be the case actually is that as I turn up the volume, at some point the right channel just might join the party like so. And there's whatever it's doing, and there's hysteresis, sort of, right at some kind of edge here. But once it's sort of locked in, I can turn it down and turn it down. And now it's gone, or severely attenuated, and it doesn't come back. And something squirrely with a good channel as well. Boom. So we have one channel being intermittent. I suspect that what we're seeing on the right channel when it's super attenuated, I suspect that's just crosstalk. And I could probably prove that by yeah. So if I unplug it all together, let's look at what its magnitude is. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So it's not just crosstalk. I mean, that's crosstalk. That is, A is good, channel B is just crosstalk. And now it's behaving itself until here. So note the difference in scale. They look the same, but B is at a 20 millivolt scale and A is at a 500 millivolt scale. I'm going to unplug that channel. That's the magnitude of the crosstalk. So it's not just an issue of crosstalk when it's super attenuated like that. And you can also see the crosstalk has a phase lag as well, for whatever reason. Whereas the attenuated signal is in phase. Very interesting. You know, it's the kind of thing where you'd go, if this were a power amp, you'd go, oh, there's a relay that's bad. Okay. Well, we know something's wrong, and we know that it's intermittent. That's great. It's wild. It's coming down very far. Oh, weird. Huh. Oh boy. Anybody else notice the phase thing going on here? And once it sort of locks in, it seems to stay fine down to low volume. In some cases, all the way down to near zero volume. And I can see it differing a bit, being a little more attenuated. Which doesn't surprise me a lot for an old pot. And I get it all the way down to zero. And then start turning it up again. Oh, and it's still with us. Not just right though. And now it's finally caught up. God damn. Well. Interesting. All right. I think thing to do is just figure out where it is, where this might be happening. So I need to do a. I need to figure out where the output from the phono stage is. I suspect it's going to be on. It's probably capacitor coupled. These are probably the. Oh, look at that! It went away again. So I suspect these. I need to look at the schematic though. Figure out where the output of the phono stage is to see if that's where it's happening. Didn't see anything like this problem occurring with the aux input, so I do suspect that it's got to be happening at before the output of the phono stage, but I want to check. So find out where that is, and see if I can find the schematic. I think I have it. Yeah. Or do I? I've got the series 2, or is this, it says 2000 series 2 preamplifier service manual. So I guess this is the service manual for both. Qualified personnel. I suppose one thing I can do is just check the various switches, see if... Ooh. That's with the signal path going. The heck. So there's a thing, there's a button on the here to bypass the tone controls, and I've had it in for flat, and then when it's out, that means the tone controls are in the circuit. And so, you know, when you've got something that looks like an intermittency that could be associated with a bad volume pot, but it's not behaving like a volume pot issue, it's a good idea to check all the switches that it goes through, because you could have an intermittent contact in one or more switches, and that does appear to be a thing here. And it's possible that simply working that switch a couple of times has solved the issue. Because that's the thing, believe it or not. I'm assuming that I have, and I'm pretty sure I remember doing so. I'm pretty sure I've treated all of those switches with deoxit. Doesn't mean they're going to be completely problem-free thereafter. And sometimes you just gotta work them a bit. You see it flatline there for a second? That's the tape monitor switch, and the other tape monitor switch. Okay. It appears that there's a bit of an issue with the tone control bypass switch, in that it's still doing this funny stuff. I'm going to turn it off, work that switch a bunch of times. You know, I was a little surprised when something seemed to go wrong with this preamp, because there's just so little going on in here. I mean, what you see here is what you get. It's mostly board space, mostly empty board space. Notifications keep popping up. Sorry for the vibration there. Now it appears everything is hunky-dory. But you know, sometimes that's all these things need, is a little attention. So with that 2.5 millivolt input, we're getting 1.32 volts amplitude out. Let's see, let me check the specs to see whether that's consistent with its specs. rated output voltage is 2 volts RMS. Input sensitivity for rated output voltage phono is 2.0 millivolts. And we're not getting that. And in other words, I set that input at 2.5 millivolts, or 2.6 to be more precise. And at full volume, I'm only getting 1.3 volts out. Does that bug me? Yeah, it bugs me a bit. Either the spec is wrong and therefore misleading. Well, the spec is wrong. Is it originally wrong? Or is it is there something wrong? And if there is something wrong, it seems to be equally wrong in both channels. And of course, the phono is going to be variable over frequency, but it ought to, at 1 kilohertz, that's where there ought to be, that is essentially the right frequency at which to test, is my recollection. That said, is it something to worry about? Let me go back to looking at the input, see what it's for one of these. See what we need to get us up to 2 volts RMS at 1 kilohertz. A bit of phase lag there. It's 2 B, and volts AC. Okay. So now we can see what input. Turn the volume back to max. And what input do I need to get that 2 volts RMS that it advertises? And it would appear that I need 4 millivolts in order to get 2 volts out. Literally twice what it says in the manual. Well, I don't know if I'm not going to worry about it. No, not right now anyway. Not without committing to a complete overhaul of the phono and of the phono preamp, which it could probably use at some point, but that wasn't the point of this particular bit of repair. Rather, the issue here seems to have been addressed by simply working the switch. So I guess one of the lessons from this is that, with old gear especially, you can have treated the switches and pots, and that doesn't mean you're not going to have to fuss with them later on. I find it's pretty common that I need to work old pots back and forth a few times, work switches in and out a few times with old gear, even after I've worked on it. And isn't that lovely that that seems really to be the only problem here, other than requiring 4 millivolts input on the phono to get 2 volts out. I was kind of counting on this being a 2-volt output for phono kind of preamp as advertised. So that's a bit of a bummer, because at 2 millivolts, I'm only getting a volt, which, often is fine, but some power amps need more than that to get to full power. And some of my power amps need more than that to get to full power. In particular, my Beaver Valley, I think at the higher gain setting, needs 1.5 volts, maybe a little more, to get to full power. Well, like I said, without a complete overhaul of the phono stage, I'm not gonna worry about it now. Well, that was awfully easy. But I do have another preamp that I might want to work on. Can you guess? All 2 or maybe just 1 of you? Or am I the only one watching my stream right now? That's funny. How long have I been going? Almost 90 minutes. Because the other thing that I've been wanting to do is to work on my my ARC preamp, audio research, and check to see which gain configuration it's currently operating in. It has there's resistors that can be modified so that it can either have 18 dB max gain or 12 dB max gain. And at the 12 dB setting, I believe that the single-ended gain is 0 dB. Whereas at the 18 dB setting, the nominal gain for single-ended is 6. Something like that. I have, where do I have it? Do I have I downloaded the information on the modification on my phone, but I may have to stop the stream while I retrieve that. I don't think, it doesn't seem to be here on my laptop. That's a bummer. Let me just search. Trying to think how I can get it off of my phone. Email it. Yeah. Yeah, see, the deal is for my ARC preamp, it doesn't have a whole lot of gain, and one of my favorite amplifiers that you might be familiar with is my Beaver Valley amp, and it doesn't have a lot of gain either. And you know, I've literally maxed the volume knob on at least one album, wanting to listen to it. It's not just like at ear-splitting volumes that it's an issue. All right, let me see what I can do, whether I need to stop the stream or what. Yeah, maybe I'm back. Yeah. All right, so what I did was I had to interrupt the stream in order to email myself the guide for how to modify the gain on the LS15. So let me reassemble this Phase Linear 2000, and we'll see what is to be done. I think that might be interesting for some people. Oh, god dang it, I keep hitting my head on the friggin' camera. Well, if you just tuned in, I'm about to work on the Audio Research LS15. I'm reassembling the Phase Linear 2000, which had a problem that appears to have resolved itself with working the tone control switch. We'll see if that remains to be the only problem in use, but on the bench, that's the only problem that I was able to find. Oddly enough, it only showed up as a problem in for using PhonoStage. That doesn't really make sense, does it? God damn it. But, you know, can only address problems that I can reproduce. It seems fine otherwise. So, put it back in its box. And any more testing will need to be done on in the test rig while actually listening to it. My asses. Because I've got this Ziploc bag in here holding the original plugs, jacks. Okay. Yeah, I've been wanting to do this so that I will, while I reassemble this, I will speak upon the work that is about to be done. Knock wood, I've got to make sure I've got the resistors that I need. But the LS15 can come from the factory with 2 different gain settings, and it's simply a matter of changing 4 resistors to switch between those. But it's not like, there's not a switch that can be worked by the end user. It needs to actually go to, get on a bench and have resistors changed on the circuit board. And I wonder whether this particular mounting scheme in this box wasn't, I suspect it might have been a modification rather than a factory configuration. Trouble finding the friggin' hole to get it back together. There we go. And the holes are well done, but they don't seem to perfectly match up to the holes that they're supposed in the sheet metal that they're supposed to screw into. Whatever, that's fine. All right, let's just take this out of here. Out of here, meaning to the couch for now. And so there's the arc preamp up there on the top on the left. And actually this will be a good chance to check all the functionality of that Kenwood. So bonus, right? Okay, let's see. I can set up the camera-ish so that you can see what I'm doing. Maybe. Case, what could happen? Oh, I need to make sure I've got the right resistors. So I'll tell you. Let me get the document up here. What the hell? Where is it? Oh, there it is. So it comes as a gain reduction guide, instruction, whatever. And but it works either way, just so long as you understand which resistor values are for which. Anyway, I'm just getting set here. Gonna emailed myself the guide instructions. I want to put them in the proper folder. Get back out of my email. Okay. And I'll show you what's going on there. So here we have the installation instructions for kit number, blah, 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 gain reduction kit for LS15. And here the trick is just to remember and notice that for gain reduction, we need 3.01K resistors. And when we go to the board diagram here, it says remove 1.1K resistors and install 3.01K resistors. Well, if my gain is already low and I rather want to increase it, then my board will currently have 3.01K resistors, and I'll want to remove those and put in 1.1K resistors. So I need to check to see if I have those. 1.1K, not a super standard value, but I do have a pretty good inventory of resistor values, so let's see what I got. Certainly got 1K, but 1.1? Don't know. Ooh, yes, I do. I have 1.1. And indeed, I've got several. Now, I'm just going to check, because I doubt that I have any 3.01K, but it doesn't. No, indeed I don't. I have 3K and I have 3.3, not 3.01, but it appears that that's not what I need, so I assume that I have what I need. Okay. Let's get the preamp. Yeah, not the best view, but it will have to do for now. It's Spidey. Mostly going to be an unplugging job. Because boy, do I have a lot of stuff plugged into this preamp. XLR cables. Some just really stiff titled RCAs. Once I go to the TV. Oof. I hate using them, they're so tight. I suppose I could make myself some nice ones. Oof. I'll use some of the nice ones. Alright. And the others are mostly bi-board connectors and some WBTs, which are relatively easy to get out. Just gotta unscrew to loosen a little bit and they come out easily. So all that kind of stuff where I don't really need to see it to do it, I can do reaching around to the back. Oh, that was my toe. No, the loud noise wasn't my toe. Chair falling also hit my toe. Okay. Let's get you back in your spot. This is the LS15. It's a very nice preamp, and I spent something like real money on this. You know, if you know my channel, if you know me at all, then you know most of the gear I have I didn't really spend much on. But this I wanted a nice preamp, a nice tube preamp, and I decided that I could pay real money. Not new. This model came out in I think 1996, if I recall correctly, and features 4 small signal tubes of the 6DJ8 family. Currently in there are a set of 4 so-called reflectors. Those are Soviet tubes, I think. I want to say 6N23P, maybe? I don't precisely recall. Now, I've never worked on this. Only thing I've done, well, I think when it was shipped, something came loose inside. Some like board mount thing, I think, came loose, and I had to put it back on. And that was easy, relatively speaking. But I haven't gone in and done any component replacements at all. I mean, that was the idea, is that I wanted to get a preamp that was already had done anything that it might need to have done. You can see it has some very nice big film caps. Those are 5 microfarads each. And here we have the tubes. They've got these little sort of anti-microphonicity rubber bands, O-rings on them. And the resistors that we are looking for on this board. Should be kind of like right in the middle here. Yeah, here we're here, here, and here. Indeed, the ones in there are 3.01. Okay. They're green. Huh. Well, you can see there's some solid state type stuff going on here. What are those? I mean, I'm assuming they're op amps. I'm just sort of looking to see if I can recognize what model they are. And I can't really. The designations are slightly obscured, and I don't recognize them right off the bat. There's some more ICs over here and a bunch of discrete transistors. I think all of that stuff is in general, that's going to have to do with so all of these controls are, you know, sort of digitalized or electronicized, or they're not really manual. They look like manual controls, but they're just those controls are just controllers to have electronic switching done, so that the volume is in fact a stepped attenuator. I don't know if these, you know, how much of this is to do with what. I have not studied the I've not studied the schematic for this preamp, nor do I own the schematic or have the schematic for this preamp. See, it's got a few transistors on with big heat sinks. I expect that those are power supply transistors. Got a very, looks like that is the power transformer. No. Here's the power transformer here, right? Yeah. So I don't know offhand what that's for. I mean, you can see that this is a power transformer. I get it. I know what this is. So it's got a separate power supply for all this sort of digital signal switching over here. So a little bitty power transformer, relatively small diodes for the what do you call it? The full bridge rectifier, and probably this is giving us a 5-volt supply, if I had to guess. And I do kind of have to guess, unless I look at. I can't see the. Dang it. Sorry again. Can't see what these. LM3771. I think that's a variable voltage. LM317. All right. Well, so it's got these are voltage regulators right here. This and probably the other are voltage regulators as well. So yeah, I think that's what that is. It's got a whole different power supply, including a whole different power transformer for the digital stuff, digital switching over here. Interesting. Yeah, these are Motorola chips, all of them, and I suspect those are controllers, but I don't know. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, all that's very interesting, I suppose, but what we're really after are just these resistors over here. Um, I want to know, though, in here, the resistors are listed in here as 3.01K ohm MK3. And I don't know what the MK3 stands for. And I would like to know, in case I need to know, because I want to know whether these are suitable replacements. These are, so let me uh, ask Google or something. Let's see. It says here, MK3 typically refers to a specific version or model of a resistor, often indicating a third iteration. I suppose that's what that would seem to mean. Let's see. Here's somebody asking a question about an ARC piece. It asks, what is an MK3 resistor? I need to make a modification to my Audio Research LS2 to lower the gain. ARC have sent me a schematic and a parts list. I only need to swap 6 resistors, but according to ARC, they need to be MK3 type resistors. Does anyone know what these are and where to get them? MK3 are half-watt metal film resistors, no longer manufactured by the German company Rudolstein Aero-Resista, now part of Vishay Group. Very famous years ago and used in many high-end products, they are coated with navy blue lacquer. I think you can replace them with any good metal film resistor, but if you want them, take a look at www.percyaudio.com. Michael Percy still has a good number of NOS resista. Part of Vishay Group, these are Yagyo, not Vishay. They are metal film, they are 1% and they are half watt. So, I expect these are fine. Just looking for anything in the part number that might sort of be reminiscent of something like MK3. Not seeing it. Let me see, is that the last word? That seems to be the only answer, probably because it was the only answer needed. But let's just do a little more digging around. Help me identify a Rudolstein MK3 resistor. Hi people, can you help me identifying these resistors? All I know is they are Rudolstein MK3s. Do you mean the resistance value or need more information about the MK3 series? I mean the resistor values. Oh. Well, that's not hard. That's not what kind of thing I want to know. Well, I expect it's interesting that the Google search is yielding answers, but the AI summary is not. Well, not really. It's not telling me what that DIY audio post told me, but it should be fine. Cool. I think probably, yeah, I don't need to take the board out. I can simply turn it over and take off the bottom panel. Hello, Technobby. Here's the other driver. I think it's got a bit more magnetic business. Yeah. And just a slicker bearing in there to enable speedy removal of screws. The narwhal is great if you really need that extra torque due to the extra thickness, or you need those specifically beefy bits, but a little all-purpose one here with the metal handle is generally sufficient. And very nicely, the bearings and the handle are very nice. This is, you know, that spins. So hold that and remove it without issue. Okay. Oop. Okay, so I just need to look and make sure this isn't going to be any big deal here. Got two more under here. What are these? 2, 1. No. It's not always clear which way to read resistors. These would be either 5.361, which would mean 5.36K, or you read them from the other end as 211, but then that just doesn't really make sense. 536 is sure not a very standard sort of value, but I mean, who am I anyway? Just a couple more. This is 4 of those. And interesting how they don't have, they're through-hole resistors, but they're not the leads don't go through holes. Got another capacitor here in the bottom. 47 microfarad, 250 volts. Expect that goes with the supply for the anodes for the tubes. Got a couple of big beefy resistors here. Bunch of discrete transistors. Some with these glued on metal, or not metal, clear plastic caps on them, and others without. Interesting. I mean, interesting. I've never seen anything like that. In general, one might worry a little bit about that sort of glue, but it doesn't appear to be doing anything bad. You know, just for kicks though, I'm going to check and see if it has any kind of measurable resistance to it. because, you know, that's the issue with old glue, is that it can become conductive. Yeah, not reading any kind of resistance, measurable resistance for this stuff. That's good. All right, where are these resistors then? I think, check that. I don't know if this is a bottom view or a top view that I've got for the schematic. I think it's a top view, yeah. Not going to be awfully helpful down here. It's a 2-layer circuit board that is has traces on the top and the bottom. I believe it's only a 2-layer. As I look through it, I only see stuff on the top and stuff on the bottom. Anyway, here are the resistors. They are between the tubes. Luckily, I'm pretty sure I can work on this without taking the board out, which means that I can leave the tubes alone. Yeah, these are look for the tube number designation on there. Yes, so in if you don't know the Russian alphabet, it looks like 6H23 pi EB, but in the Russian alphabet, the H is an N and the pi is a P. It's after Greek. And so 6N23P dash, and the B is a V. So in English, that'd be 6N23P dash EV. And an OTK one, and they say, do they say? Anyway, what I gather about these is that these are essentially old Soviet mil-spec tubes, and very nice ones, and I like them, and so I bought them off of my friend Chris, who gave me a very, very nice deal on them. And he had no use for them. I'm sure they cost him much, significantly more than what I paid him for them. But they're not brand new either. Anyway. All right, so between the tubes, talking, that's a little tricky. It's a little tricky. So they're close to this set of tubes. And looks like I'm going to need to desolder them from the top or something. Hopefully those holes go all the way through, don't they? Ooh. But they might be under these caps. Yeah, they are, I think. Maybe? Where are they? These are. I don't want to screw this up. It's like if I can't do this super cleanly and easily, well, I don't know about easily, but if I can't do this super cleanly, then I don't want to do it at all. Um, okay, here's pin, so I'll point out to you what I'm seeing here. Let's see, I don't know, it's tricky, but so looks like those are 3 pins for transistor, and I'm looking to see where, because there's 2 rows of transistors under there. Between, oh, well, no, there's only 1 row of transistors that go between where the tubes are, right? And there's these up here, but this shouldn't be able to be confused. So we can see transistor, 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 transistor. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 transistors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 transistors. Okay. And then just this tube side of the row of transistors, we find, well, there are these resistors, but then these here. Okay. So what I'm concerned with is whether the little caps that are sitting on top of the transistors, whether those are covering any of the pin holes or leads for the transistors or resistors, sorry, that I need to remove. And can't tell that for sure, but it does appear that none of the resistors are all that close to the transistors. Okay, now, are there way to closer? Okay, I think then these are likely to be, at least some of these pins along this row are going to be the resistor pins. So I need to see what's on that row. Right. So on that row, we've got different resistor, and then looks like the next 4 holes would be from the resistors that I need to remove. Likewise over here, if we go in from the outside or even the other side, it's the middle 4. So on that row, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pins, and the middle 4 are the resistors that we want to remove. Okay. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that makes sense. These are both in one trace. Hence they're kind of bunched, melted together there. So it's dun 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 dun. No. Dun 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 dun. these here. And over here, dun, 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 these, no, this, dun, dun, dun. Okay. Let's turn on some hot stuff. Looking for some hot stuff, baby, this evening. Soldering tool, soldering iron. Can I admit that this makes me nervous? I spent a significant amount of money on this preamp. I'm not eager to screw it up, as you might imagine. These are close. That's going to be a bit tricky. And what I don't know is whether I'll be able to suck all the solder through that's on the other side of the board. You know, but we'll see. Make sure we're clog free here. Cool. Like barely any kind of pin coming through here. Yeah, looks like I'm not going to be able to get away with only desoldering on this side, but we shall see. Okay, that says 4. Okay, let's see what the task on the other side is looking like. Yeah. It looks like this one, for example, I've got all the solder that I need, maybe through. This one I could probably do a bit more from the other side, maybe. These here, definitely going to have to go at them from this side, and so I'm going to take these tubes out so that I have better access. Shiny pins. Those are pretty. Just show you up close and personal if I can. Yeah, it's not good light, is it? Sorry. So when I bought this, it came with some 7 DJ8 tubes, which are NOS. They were, you know, old manufacturer. And they're fine, but they're a bit of an odd choice for this sort of unit. So why would you use a 7-volt tube for a 6-volt in a 6 where 6 volts are called for? And often that can be a very wise choice because the nominal voltage for a 7-volt tube is 7.0 volts, whereas the nominal voltage for a 6-volt tube is 6.3 volts, and then there's some tolerance on both of those voltages. When you're dealing with very old stuff, especially stuff made in the 60s and even the 50s, the line voltage, mains line voltage was 117 volts AC. And now it's going to be, you know, even though it's sort of the nominal is reported as 120, it's typically more like 124. And so it can result in too high a filament voltage even outside of the tolerance on a 6-volt tube, and actually bang on for a 7-volt tube. So in very old equipment, a 7-volt tube can be a very nice substitute for a 6-volt tube if you don't want to modify the heater circuit to buck that voltage down to get it within the tolerance for the 6-volt tube. Now, that doesn't make as much sense for this unit because this one was made in the 90s. So I'm pretty sure in the 90s, the mains line voltage was about what it is now. And so 7-volt is, you know, it doesn't, it's kind of typically fine. You know, you're certainly not going to burn the tube out with a 6-volt filament supply or 6.3-volt filament supply, but maybe you're not getting quite the performance out of it that you could with a 6-volt tube, and these are 6-volt tubes. So anyway, just a little curiosity FYI there. Let's see if I can get some of this off with the solder sucker. Sorry, this desoldering tool. I'm having trouble getting good thermal contact here. There we go. Probably still need to put the soldering iron tip on there in order to get it out. Some of these resistors had curiously short leads on them. Like somebody trimmed the leads before they figured out exactly how long they really needed to be. That's probably as good as I can do with the solder sucker with a two-sided board like this. It's a challenge. You really want to do a really nice desoldering job. You want to be able to get the lead into the nozzle, and then you're trying to not touch the board so much as you're trying to make thermal contact with the lead here. And then once you do that, you get the solder melts and it wets the tip here, and you can get good suction and get almost all of it off, or often at least enough off, effectively all of it, uh, in order that you don't then need to use another tool in order to get the remainder off or melt the remainder while you try to get the leads out. Now, in this case, with a two-sided board where there are connections on being soldered connections on both sides of the board, I couldn't get all the solder sucked through to the other side from that side. I don't know. I hope that isn't too much explanation. Yeah, Chris. I had the flame linear, but it turns out it was just it just seemed to have a sticky switch, and like, I don't know, maybe that's all. So now I'm working on the ARC preamp, dude. I'm gonna change the gain from instead of reducing the gain, I'm gonna increase the gain by changing out these resistors. So let's get the tweezers. I haven't used this tip before, so I'm not real familiar with how much and how to put the solder on it to pre-tin it for this sort of work. All right. So now you might ask, oh yeah, seriously? The MOLA finally gonna be. You like that amp, huh? That much? I can't remember if I've seen that amp you're talking about. 250? Anyway, you might ask what I'm gonna do with these. I will actually Probably put these in a sort of one of these kinds of resistor bags and tape it inside so that if I ever want to undo this particular modification, or I want to sell it and have the next owner be able to undo my modification, then the original resistors will be here. $250-watt monos. Damn, I don't think I've seen those. Yeah, I've just been thinking, Chris, I need to get up and visit you. Although this weekend is out, I'm going to the coast actually instead of our usual desert trip because the desert's on fire. In case you're wondering, am I nervous about working on this audio research preamp? Yeah, you bet I am. You bet. Ruh-roh. Oh, God. I'm getting all these friggin' scam calls. Interesting. Yeah, so I will be, Chris, I will be out of town this coming weekend, Thursday through Sunday. Weekend after, though, I don't think I have anything going on. Alden is waiting for a fire call. Somehow he's made it onto the guy who makes the personnel decisions shit list, though. Which, just I find baffling, as you might, knowing Alden. And so I don't know if he's going to get the call. If he doesn't get the call, then he's going to come with us. If he does get the call, he'll go fight. Fire, that is. Wouldn't that be wild if you get called to fight the fire where we usually go camping? But I don't think you will. And it's messed up because like all the crew bosses love him, as anybody who's actually worked with him would. I mean, he's super he's super polite, he's super conscientious. He's, but for whatever reason, this one guy has a hate boner for him, and he says it's because he thinks he's a pretty boy. And Alton is good looking, but Jesus, come on. He's also super athletic. Jesus Christ. I mean, he's all of he doesn't win all of the physical tests that they do for firefighting, but he does win some of them, and not by a small amount. Like anything that involves running, he kills everybody. Upper body strength stuff, he's in the pack of, you know, firefighters. It's just absurd. And if any of you watching don't know who I'm talking about my son Alden, who was in my video on the Arylic LP100. He was also in my video about the Pavane KT88s, the Summit KT88s. And all around great. I mean, I think I keep wanting to call him a great kid, but he's a full-grown young man. Okay, so I will probably like fold this and tape that in right there once I'm done. Okay, that was nervy. Oh boy, still nervy. I need to get the rest of that solder out. If I can. Come on. Alright, it seems a little weird, but need wet solder to make good thermal and vacuum contact, and it's tough. Try it from the other side. Try one more time. Over here. Sorry, I'm being so quiet. I just screw this up. Got it. Hmm. Hmm. It's not good enough. Come on, come on, come on, come on. All right, so why does that make me so nervous? Is because you don't want the friggin' solder melting hot thing sitting on your board trace any a microsecond longer than necessary, because you don't want to friggin' fry the glue holding the or whatever cement holding the trace down onto the board. And it's a real concern. There's most repairs that I do, I'm going to lift a trace at some point. And it's not the end of the world, but I really don't want to do it on this one. And I think you can understand why. Okay. Let's see what we have. We've got a couple that have been used before. So these are 1.1K. I'm going to check resistance values on all of these, or at least, so what I would really like to do is that, they're 1%ers, but it'd be nice if they were, bang on spec, wouldn't it? I mean, like 1.10. So this is 1.102. .107. No, wait, where did I put this? Is the 7? So I want to sort these for how close to 1.100 they are. I don't know how much it matters. It probably doesn't. Again, it's my friggin' audio research preamp, so I would like to get these resistors matched as closely as I can. .107. .097. .097. Now, when you're doing repairs, this is one reason it can be nice to get more than you need, especially if the part's pretty cheap to begin with, because you may want to match resistors or transistors. Transistors is the more common thing, but and capacitors, anything, you know, there's going to be a tolerance, and what seems to be common with capacitors is they'll all be like the same value at the lower end of the tolerance range. 1.102. Those two match. And this is just interesting. I haven't done this with resistors before that I recall. It's interesting how they're coming out in sort of a few different values. So I've got 3 that are 1.107, I've got 2 that are 1.102, and 3 that are 1.097. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 of the 1.102 on one channel, and I'm going to use 2 of the 1.097 on the other channel. And so those are the values that are closest to 1.100, you know. So, you know, it's not just sometimes it's not just pull a thing out of a bag and stick it in. Phrasing. I'm putting away my resistors. I need to put these in drawers. I've got some drawers. Probably not enough for all my stuff, but okay. Resistors chosen. Need to put them in now. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to tape them down so they don't fall out, and so I don't have to bend over the leads on the bottom in order to get them to stay put while I solder them in. So when you see, you know, parts that have been glued down or the leads are bent over onto the circuit board, the only reason for that is that they were trying to keep the parts in place while they soldered them on. No good reason after that, after fabrication is finished, after the soldering on has been done, there's no reason for that to be that way. In fact, you know, the glue, both of those things, whether glue or having the leads bent over, makes later work more difficult. So rather than something permanent, I'm going to do something temporary in order to hold these in place while I work on the other side. And there we go. All ready to be made permanent. The other thing that I've seen as like a standard practice is that they pre-trim the leads, and I don't know why you'd want to, I don't know of a good reason to do that. If anybody does, let me know. I could sort of imagine maybe why there'd be a reason to do that, but I don't know. Just seeing that it's a thing that people do, usually in a more professional sort of setting. And so, but again, you know, sometimes things are done for reasons other than um, the long term. Like, does it make any difference for the long term durability of these joints to trim them ahead of time? Don't know. I generally trim them after. I may need to put solder, and I probably do need to put solder on the other side. But maybe not. No. Yeah. Might be best off doing all the soldering from the other side and just feeding in a bit more than I have. You know, I'm trying to be careful not to glob on too much solder. Ideally, you want your solder wetting both the pad and the lead, and to the visual insurance that you have that the solder has wetted to both of those surfaces is that you have a concave joint. That is, you've got this sort of, you know, concave sides of the cone. And that's another reason it's nice to have the leads poking straight out rather than down, folded down onto the board, because you can really get that particular wetted indicating shape better. Now, that means you don't want to glob it on, but so I was real stingy with feeding in solder, but I kind of didn't think while I was doing it about the fact that I needed to get solder into the other side as well. Now, I think pretty much all these joints are probably fine already, but I'm just going to feed in a bit more for the reason of that the other side is maybe, see, but that, dang it, that didn't do what I wanted it to. Let me note that again, see if any will go through. Maybe. Yeah, I'm gonna do it from the other side. so don't want somebody coming along later and going, what a freaking butcher job. Not that I think I ever do a butcher job, but dang it, it's an audio research piece. All right, and I'm going to be scrupulous about cleaning up. There we go. What am I doing? I'm cleaning off flux. It's one of those things. It's, do you really need to? Yeah, maybe not, but trim. Trim and we're done. Okay. It's not just being nervous, it's caffeine and stimulants, all right? And not as young as I used to be either. Do a little more, a little extra cleanup around here. I can't tell what's going on right here. It seems like there's mate. No. All right. No, it was just a chunk of flux was on there. Okay, it looks all good. So that didn't take very long at all. And I can just put this back and replug in the things that were plugged in. I was just checking this. It looks symmetrical about this axis, and I was just checking to see because there's a this one would ensure that it's grounded if there's a similarly cleared off spot on the other side. So I was looking to see whether one or both were cleared off. Both of them are. So it is indeed reversible. I mean, this way. Nice touch, really. Alright, gotta do something a little more retentive than masking tape, because masking tape is going to get cooked inside here. So I'm going to use this cloth electrical tape, this backed tape, to batten this down inside here. Let me just look underneath and make sure that up here is the best place for it. Turn off the hot things. Yeah, not really room down there. And I could put them over here. That actually might be better. Even though this is power supply stuff, it's not very hot. It's just the digital supply over here. So this part over here should be pretty unheated, relatively speaking. Just wipe off the area so the tape will stick easily and well. I'm just looking over on this side over here for whether there might be any relative discoloration of the metal due to the heat from the tubes. I'm not seeing any, but nevertheless, I like it better to put them over here instead of next to the tubes. The resistors, I mean. Just tuck that in right there, and it shouldn't be in contact with anything. It's too long. Shoot. It's too long. It's too long. Only just fits. Oh, sorry, Chris. I'm only really actually just reading all of your messages. Sorry to hear about your aunt. Can't remember if you. Is that a new development? I don't remember. Dang it. So much for not touching the sticky part. Yeah, if you're still on, Chris, I might give you a call once I get off of this. If you're available. All right. How's that for conscientious and fastidious? Putting the removed resistors in a nice static resistant Mylar bag inside the chassis, taped in with robust electrical tape. let me explain some of the reason for wanting to adjust the gain. Why would you want to have less gain? Well, you'd want to have less gain if you want to have greater, more precise control over the volume. If you've got a power amp that has quite a bit of gain and you never can turn it up, past 3 o'clock, then you want to reduce the gain of the preamp so that you have more of the full scale of the volume control in order to achieve more precise control over the volume. Now, for me, I'm in a situation where I am occasionally literally having to max the volume in order to listen as loudly as I want to, and I'm thinking of one particular record, it's Octopus by Gentle Giant. But, I'm sure there are other records in my collection that are mixed in a way such that they're not so compressed. Anyway, so I'd like to be able to listen to that album in particular as loud as I want, in which case I want the preamp to have more gain than it does. Now, if I had to max it for all of my amps, no, probably not. But I know I've had it maxed for at least one of my power amps, and I think it maybe even for the Heathkit AA40, which doesn't have a particularly low gain. Anyway, that's the reason why you'd want to have it one way or the other. So it's all looking good, and yeah, I think I'm done. Put it back together. Similarly, this side has both sides cleared off for the one side here that's cleaned off for grounding purposes. It's just one of many things about this preamp and its construction and so on that just say quality in an amply loud voice. Certainly no screaming involved with an audio research preamp. I've got a video coming out later this week about AI slop, and there's only a few of you in here, but maybe you can tell me, is your feed in YouTube bugging the hell out of you like it is me, with the degree to which it's been filling up with AI generated videos? Please comment. I'm curious, because it seems like an all of a sudden thing, and I'm noticing these channels only, like their first videos were posted in June. Yeah, Instagram. uh, Yeah, I don't know if I've been seeing a lot of AI stuff on Instagram. Well, I'll tell you the sorts of things on Instagram are totally fake, like like bear attacks on children, that kind of thing. But I'm I'm so I don't know if that's what you're talking about, Chris. What I'm seeing is like there'll be it's essentially these audio file type history channels, and I'll even name names. One of them's shit. One of them was Vintage American Sound. Um, what was the one that I even subscribed to? It was shit. Anyway, I've banned it from my feed, so I can't necessarily tell you now. Anyway, the best way to get rid of these things is, there'd be like three dots next to the video description in your feed, and you can click on that, and you can tell YouTube to not recommend any videos from that channel ever again. But these have really been cropping up, and it's not too surprising given what YouTube itself has been pushing to creators. If you're not a YouTube creator, then you wouldn't know, but there are there are AI features within the YouTube Creator Studio for that generate video ideas, and will even generate relatively detailed video outlines. So you could take one of those. I mean, you could make a whole channel without having a creative idea ever, right? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, you take one of these video ideas, you plug it into, you get the YouTube thingy to generate an outline, plug that into a large language model, tell it to write you a script from that outline, or just tell it to write you a script based on a prompt, um, a detailed description of your idea for the video. Um, plug the script into a text to speech AI thingy to create that smooth narrated voice where it'll talk about the Marantz 2270. And that's the real giveaway, or if there's no other giveaway, it's the sort of the mispronunciation of model names as numbers rather than like 2270 rather than 2270, that kind of thing. And then you put that into a piece of software, like I think one is called Pictory, that's got access within it to stock photos. And then that piece of software simply takes the narrated script and puts it over, and makes a bunch of stock footage, the sort of slowly, sort of Ken Burns effect, where it's just panning a still image. And that the giveaway there is that often the still image will bear little to no relevance to what's being talked about. And then, sometimes the sort of history of things that it generates will have errors. The one that sort of spurred me to look into this further was it was a video from Vintage American Sound on the history of Macintosh amplifiers, and looking in the comments, people were saying, well, that amplifier wasn't, X amplifier wasn't released in that year. It was released 2 years before that, or even many years before that. So it'll get stuff wrong. Yeah. But it will speak with absolute authority. Honest Hi-Fi, that's the one that I'm thinking of. So here's the thing that Honest Hi-Fi does. So there are a few things that you're supposed to do in order to make your channel not trigger sort of AI detectors and whatnot. One of them is you put like a real live action video on your channel. And so this channel, Honest Hi-Fi, 3 months ago, first video is like 3 minutes of footage through uh, a car, an automobile windshield. And it looks like it's somewhere, you know, like in India, maybe. I don't know. And and then it's just like all the other videos start like 1 month ago, just bang, 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 bang. And the videos all hawk a, a hi-fi buying guide by the author, by the creator of the channel. And so that's apparently another thing that you can do to make to distinguish your channel from AI is to put in a link in your channel to a store, even if the store has no merchandise. So if you follow the link in this Honest Hi-Fi channel to their store, there is one item for sale, and it is the buyer guide by Honest Hi-Fi. Like not even a human name associated with it. And I haven't actually gone so far as to see whether I could actually purchase it. But yeah, it's friggin' treacherous. And I had even subscribed to that channel. I have since unsubscribed and told YouTube never to recommend it to me again. And I found myself watching these videos. A lot of them in my feed are World War II histories, guy shit. I'm gonna, and the thing is, it's like I've watched a few of them, and they're all pretty damn similar. They're all on, D-Day and after, and so all Western Front stuff. About how what Allied, a lot of them just about Allied logistics and things that were part of the reasons that the Americans were so friggin' awesome in the West, on the Western Front. Now, whether the Americans were indeed so friggin' awesome, I don't know, but I'm sure it appeals to Americans to watch videos about how awesome the Americans were in World War II. All right, this is going back up. Anyway, I made a video about that. Essentially asking, most of it is me, is a transcript of my queries to the Google AI about AI generated hi-fi channels and what's up with them, and how not only is YouTube tolerating it, but a lot of what they're doing seems to be promoting it.